All right. Podcast episode dose.
2.
Today, as always, we're talking about training your brain to work for you, not against you. And today, we're going to go with simple two-step secret to supercharge your brain.
Oh,
How
very
about
cool.
that, huh? Doesn't that sound exciting?
It does.
Yeah. Last episode, episode uno, we talked about escaping fear. And a lot of people are fearful nowadays for whatever reason. There's lots of reasons that are being presented by mainstream media. And we also mentioned the EFT technique and affirmations where after you've done the EFT, you can get into that. Because EFT gets you out of your brainstem fear centers and into your prefrontal cortex, the PFC. And then when you're in your PFC, you're thinking logically and you can be more relaxed. And so then you can move into certain brain training exercises and techniques that you couldn't do when you were trapped in your amygdala. So the first thing I wanted to do was the EFT technique, because last time we talked about it, and then I gave the website to learn more about it, and that's bit.ly/PJ tapping. So that gives people the free lesson to go through. But I wanted to go through it really quick right now because people that might have watched that last episode felt like maybe they were left hanging a little bit because we talked about this amazing technique that is part of
it?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's listed in 14 of the 16 brain types. So it's the most common technique. And anyways, figured we'd go through it really quick. So name something that you're fearful of. It can be something current, it can be something in the past, something that you're dealing with, something maybe that you're fearing in the future.
Failure.
Okay. Can you think of a scenario or a situation where you would fear that failure?
Yeah, like maybe getting turned down if I'm trying to either sell something to someone or I guess like fear of rejection would be it.
Got it. Can you paint yourself a make-believe scenario in your brain?
Yeah, if I ask someone if they'd be willing to support me and they say no.
Okay. So now go there right now and tell me on a scale of 0 to 10, how intense is that fear of failure right now for you? When you're in that, when you're imagining the situation in the scenario.
Yeah, I would say it's probably an 8 just because the heart rate goes up as I'm asking.
Great.
And then as I am, waiting for their response, I'm so worried about what they're going to say, but that fear of even bringing it up, that's where it starts. And so that's probably an 8 for me.
Great. Because this technique works when it's a 7 or higher.
Okay.
It can still work below that. It's worked for me below that, but it works best when it's a 7 or higher. So you're perfect right now. So we're going to start with the setup.
Okay.
The easiest way to do the setup is find the karate chop spot on your hand and then tap with the fingertips of your other hand.
So that's the outside of your hand.
Yeah.
Right here. Okay.
And then repeat after me. And when you do this, think about the scenario.
Okay.
Try to stay in it and be in it. Because you want to be experiencing that fear. It's not a distraction technique. You want to experience the fear while you're doing that, because this technique is short-circuiting that pathway. It's just a nerve pathway is all that is. That's all a pattern is. That's all a feeling is. It's all an emotion, just a pathway in the nerves. So we're going to start, and you're going to repeat after me. Say, even though I'm feeling this fear,
Even though I'm feeling this fear,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I'm feeling this fear,
Even though I'm feeling this fear,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
One more time. Even though I'm feeling this fear,
Even though I'm feeling this fear,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Great. Now we're going to go through the shortcut. You're going to tap 2 fingers on the beginning of an eyebrow. It doesn't matter which hand or which side. Just tap lightly 2 fingers.
2. Okay.
And then think about the fear. Put yourself in the scenario and just say this fear out loud.
Fear of rejection.
Great. Now the outside of your eyebrow. Say it again.
Fear of rejection.
Underneath the eye. Say it again.
Fear of rejection.
Under the nose. Say it again.
Fear of rejection.
Under the mouth. A little higher. Yeah. Say it again.
Fear of rejection.
Now right down here, where the clavicle and the sternum come together. Joint. Say it
Fear
again.
projection.
Good. Now underneath the armpit on the ribs.
Oh, man. Fear of rejection.
Great. Scale of 0 to 10, where are you right now?
Feel pretty good. I think when I was doing it, where I was tapping on my fingers, I
Yeah.
think closing your eyes and really picturing yourself in that scenario is really helpful because it helps you kind of go inward. And when I was closing my eyes and doing it the first time, when I was tapping the outside of my hand, that's when I felt the best. Was when I was like really picturing myself in that moment. I think at first when you're doing it and you're not used to doing it, it can kind of feel awkward. But if you really just kind of go deep and really think about it, it's actually really calming.
That was an amazing female answer.
Oh, thank you.
Now, if you were a dude,
If you're a man, listen up.
And I,
Sorry, my feelings.
and I asked you that same question, 0 to 10, what number would you give me?
I would say a 9.
So, you're rating your fear again.
Oh, my fear again. I thought you were saying my feeling of being good. Okay, my fear. I'm not listening. Not listening and talking about my feelings. What does that sound like? I'm just kidding. But anyways, my fear now is probably at a 5, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had some movement. Now, if you were stuck at an 8, we would do the setup again. We don't need to. So we go straight to the shortcut. So back to the beginning of the eyebrow. Put yourself in the scenario. Try to feel the fear and just say it out loud. This fear of rejection, whatever you want to say.
Okay, fear of rejection.
Now, outside of the eyebrow, say it.
Fear of rejection.
Under the eye, feel it and say it.
Fear of rejection.
Under the nose,
Fear of rejection.
under the mouth.
Fear of rejection.
Now that joint
Fear of rejection.
and the ribs.
Fear of rejection.
0 to 10. That's answering like a dude.
4.
Okay.
Oh my god. Short answer.
Great.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Mine was a short story at first.
We're going to do it one more time.
Yeah. Okay.
Put yourself in the scenario
Okay. Fear of rejection.
outside of the eyebrow,
Fear of rejection.
under the eye,
Fear of rejection.
under the nose,
Fear of rejection.
under the mouth,
Fear of rejection.
joint,
Fear of rejection.
ribs.
Fear of rejection.
What are you?
So it's going down pretty consistently. It's probably a 3. So
Great. So when you're 3 or lower, then you're good.
you're doing better.
Yeah, then it's not going to actually affect you because you're not going to be making emotional reactions to it because the emotion is gone at a 3 or lower.
So do you think it's just, me asking because of myself personally, because I'm able to kind of take myself there a little more and kind of dive a little deeper. Do you think for someone that can't do that or has a hard time doing that this just takes time? It's something that over time will start to make you feel better?
Yeah, so it depends on the person. It depends on this scenario.
How fearful they are.
Let's just go just all in with something traumatic, like something in the past.
Right.
But it was horrible. It's going to take longer. This isn't a catch-all panacea for everybody for everything. Some stuff you just got to go get professional help. But why not try this first?
Yeah, it's just like
It might not work,
right.
but it might,
Right.
because we talked about focus, physiology, belief. This is at least 2 of the 3.
Right.
So that's why this is so effective. But some stuff is so deeply rooted that gotta get help somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I would say a lot of people actually have fear of rejection or failure. That's like a big one for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's, like I said, it was the asking the question, which
Mm-hmm.
is weird.
Mm-hmm.
But my heart rate would spike
Mm-hmm.
right when I asked the question. And I wonder why that is like it's just that question asking and then it's wondering what they're gonna say. So I think it's just different for everybody. Everybody's gonna be
Yep.
different.
So we also touched on affirmations yesterday, and once you use EFT to get you out of the state that you're in, the crummy state, and into a better state, better place, now you're in your PFC. Now stuff like affirmations works better. Affirmations can still work when you're stuck in your amygdala and the brainstem and the primitive brain with fear, but it's going to be way more effective when you're in your PFC. So now that you're there, we can do it. Now, the affirmations, that's a super popular thing that people do, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's books written about it, and everybody thinks how great it is. But most people don't actually do it.
No, yeah.
And the ones that try it will do it for a little while, and then they'll stop. They're like, well, what's wrong with me? Well, it's not your brain type. It's not your top 6. It's actually only 2 of the 16 brain types.
Really?
Very uncommon. I was surprised too.
See, that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, where I stand. Because I need to retake it. But it's just like,
Yeah, do you remember your brain types?
I have to go look at it again because I took the first one and it's been revised, which is so awesome and so exciting.
Yeah.
But it's just the, what was I going to say? The affirmations that we were doing when I was tapping on my fingers like this,
Mm-hmm.
I deeply and completely accept myself. It like washed
Yeah.
a really amazing feeling. And that's like a form of affirmations.
Well, it still might be in your top 10,
Could be.
but it'll be interesting to see if you retake the test if it's in your top 6.
Yeah.
Because it sure is for the innovator brain type and the motivator brain type. The innovator is an extreme introvert brain type.
Doesn't sound like me
And the
at all. So
and the motivator is an extrovert brain type. But it's in the top 6 for those. It still works for others, but for affirmations, it's going to seem silly.
Yeah. That's what we were talking about the last episode.
Yeah.
It just feels really awkward at first.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the better it's going to feel and you're going to get in that routine.
Right. But your toddler doesn't think it's silly. Think of all the toddler shows on TV. Mm-hmm. They're all overactors. Mm-hmm. And as an adult, we watch that show and we're like, oh, that's so ridiculous. But the toddler loves it. So that's what we need to do to train our inner toddler, is to overact and to be emphatic about it. So for the innovator, they would say something like, I'm fascinated to see what new techniques I'll create to help myself and others. Something that gets them juiced up, excited, and they're using words and they're overacting. The motivator, the more extroverted brain type, would say something like, I'm thrilled to see how my influence on others will change their lives for the better. So those would be some good examples.
So it's so interesting how they sound so similar, but they're very different.
Very different.
The mindset and like what it looks like to actually help other people.
Yeah.
So it's just it's very interesting.
Yeah, because the innovator with a more introverted brain type is more interested in staying home and researching and creating techniques. Mm-hmm. And the motivator with the more extroverted brain type is more interested in getting out there and motivating and influencing others. Mm-hmm. And they just have different motivators.
Mm-hmm. So you were talking about your inner toddler, right? And for the people that weren't listening to the last episode or haven't seen the last episode, how would you explain the inner toddler? What does that mean?
Well, the inner toddler is the subconscious brain, and that's most of the brain. Mm-hmm. Pretty much all the parts of the brain besides the prefrontal cortex, which is like the parent brain, the part of the brain where we find willpower and control and rational thought, logic, things like that. The toddler is very reactionary, irrational, emotional. And so when the parent brain, the PFC, is programming the toddler, the rest of the brain, it's using emotion, is very effective. Anything that would work on a 3-year-old works on that part of the brain. So that's why I call it a toddler,
Right.
because that's the level that it's operating on.
Yeah.
Now, the EFT, getting back to that EFT technique, another great use of that technique is for cravings,
Oh yeah.
food cravings.
Food cravings. Yeah,
I've tapped away hundreds
sugar
of
is
things.
just, man, if I could get rid of that one, that would be nice.
And once you do get rid of it, or fear or whatever else you're tapping for, it's permanent for that aspect.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's other aspects to things, but it's permanent, and you have to relearn it because now you've short-circuited that pathway. So you got to be careful
Yeah, it's
of
habits.
what you do it with, because
Right.
you don't want to not,
Yeah, because a habit, like you talked about previously and you've been talking about a lot, when you build a habit, you build a neurological pathway. And the more that you do that habit, the deeper the neurological pathway gets. So the deeper it is, the harder it is to get out. But if you're tapping like this and you're breaking that neurological pathway, it's a great way to get out of there and form new habits, ones that you like instead of dislike. So
yeah.
just really, really, really valuable. But I think that's why it's so important to get the brain type test and to take it so that you figure out which ones you have so that you know what works best for you. Because this is a great technique. And that's why it's so awesome that we're going to go through all these techniques in all of our episodes. But just explaining it on a deeper dive so that people can understand not only what it is, but how you do it, how you execute that. So,
Yeah. So we went over the EFT. That's good for 14 of the 16.
Right.
Still works for the other two, but it's just in the top 6 of the 14, 16.
right.
And then the affirmations, which is just 2 of the 16. It still works for the others, but it's
Right.
not in the top 6. And then for the full brain type test, it's brain type me, brain type.me. It's easy to remember.
Oh, yeah. Super easy.
And then for the video of the EFT, you go to bit.ly/PJ tapping.
Okay.
And then you can get that free video, just that one lesson. But with the brain type test, you get 6 lessons for your brain type. And a lot of people get 2 brain types. They get a primary and a secondary. So they got 12
Wow.
lessons, because sometimes they're this a certain way at home and then a certain way at work. That's why they get 2. And then they've got lots of tools.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about the brain type test is that you know how you'll take a personality test? It's great to know your personality type, but wouldn't it be great to not only know your personality, but how to rewire certain things that you really like about your personality?
Some tools,
Some
what to do with
tools.
it, and some permanent rewiring
It's
techniques.
action, right? It's
Bingo.
like you don't just have it in writing, oh, this is who you are. It's now how do you deal with yourself? So
And how do you change
how do you
yourself
change
for
the way you
better?
want to? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
Right on. Cool. There
you
you have it.
Episode 2.
Dos. Done.
Done.
Boom.
And that's all I have to say about that.